class, class. You say yes, yes, and give me your eyes and your ears. Class, class. Beautiful. Okay. So as we talked about last class, we are starting to learn about World War II and the major events in World War II. When you came in, everybody had this sheet on their desk. This is a note sheet. It should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages long. Please don't give up on me. I promise it's not that much. Today we are going to be working on the first 3 pages, starting with the overview of the World War II notes. So it's going to be this page right here, this next page right here, and this beautiful page right here. Today we are going to be taking a lot of notes, but please do not give up on me. I have made them all fill in the blank right here, so you don't have to, break your wrist trying to do this. This is a super interesting topic. It'll be fun, I promise. Okay? So, the major events of World War II. Today is part 1. As I said, it is the overview. We are going to be learning the basics of the topic. We're going to make all the information we learn today is going to make the next couple of lessons a lot easier. Looking forward, so you guys have something to look forward to. Part 2, we're going to go in detail with the events. You guys are going to do that. And then the final thing that we'll be doing with World War II events is you guys will end up writing a song. We don't have to worry about this today, so if this gives you anxiety, it's none of our business right now. However, what this does mean is this topic, we're going to have a lot of fun with it. It's going to be a lot more interesting, so bear with me through the notes. And to be able to do this, you need to pay attention because you're going to need all the right information to do that final project. So, jumping in, the major events of World War II, the part 1 overview. We are going to start with this lovely little song I found, giving you a little overview of World War II. So we're going to go ahead and watch this.
Hitler and the German Nazis wanted Europe in 1939. The Germans attacked Poland, and that started the war. England and France said that wasn't okay, and they wrote declared war on Germany. The Soviet Union was still Germany's ally. At that time, Germany took the western half of Poland, and then moved on. Denmark, Norway, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Belgium. Hungary put up a fight when it came to France. The French resistance fought the Nazis again and again. German blitzkrieg fighting was super fast, like nothing they had ever seen in the past. The Allied powers fought the Axis powers in World War II. The Allied powers fought the Axis powers, and they won. Over 60 million people died during World War II. Approximately 80,000 American troops died during the Battle of the Bulge. Russia alone lost over 20 million lives. The U.S. landed in 1944 on D-Day, and the Germans had in store a huge defeat as the Allies surrounded the war. And won the war, the Japanese wouldn't stop fighting until Truman dropped 2 atom bombs. Hiroshima and Nagasaki had lost hundreds of thousands of lives. The Allied powers fought the Axis powers in World War II. The Allied powers fought the Axis powers. And the Allied powers fought the Axis powers in World War II. The Allied powers fought the Axis powers. And they won.
So that was a little intro to what we are jumping into today. Let's see. So that song really prepped us for all the notes we were going to take today. We're about to jump right into Allied and Axis powers, which they talked about at the beginning and during the chorus of that song. But that gave you a timeline overview of everything, the big events that kind of happened in the war. But now we're going to jump in and get a little bit more meat on these bones and figure out what that song was talking about. So, the Allied powers. This is the very first section of your notes. While I'm going through this, you have to pay good attention to what's blank in your notes so that you fill in the correct information while I'm going over everything, okay? The main Allied powers included Great Britain, the Soviet Union, which we know now as Russia, the United States, China, and France. Britain and France were the first countries to declare war on Germany, quickly followed by the Soviet Union, or Russia, after Germany tried to invade their land. Later, Japan attacked the U.S. Navy base, which brought them into the war with the Soviet Union and Britain. China engaged in war with Japan before the U.S. was attacked. China and the U.S. teamed up throughout the war for resources and geographic advantages. So, this slide is going over the Allied powers, which is the team, if you will, that the United States was a part of. So, our partners during the World War were Great Britain, Russia, France, and China. We had more allies, but these were the main players in the game. So, the people, the first in our group to go to war with Germany was Britain and France, because Germany was trying to invade their land. So Germany was trying to come in, steal their land, and they were like, hey, I don't like that. I don't think that's okay. So we're gonna fight back. So that started a lot of conflict in Europe. Later on, Japan, who was teammates with Germany, attacked the U.S., bringing us into it. So we teamed up with Britain and France. And later on, Russia as well. China and Japan have never been best buds. They've always had issues. They always had a toxic relationship. And because of that, they were a huge partner, coupled with the U.S., to help us during the war. So these are the Allied powers. Moving on. We have the Axis powers. These are the people that the U.S. and all of our friends were fighting against. Okay, so these were our enemies at the time. The main Axis powers were Germany, Italy, and Japan. Germany was the first Axis power. The country invaded France and attempted to invade the Soviet Union. So we talked about that in the last slide. France, the Soviet Union, Britain, all of those countries, Germany, stepped on their borders and they had an issue with this. So that's kind of what started the war in Europe. Italy was the next country to join the Axis powers, and after this, Japan signed a treaty with Germany and Italy while joining them as an Axis power. So altogether, these were the three main players in the Axis powers. Again, there were some people that helped them out along the way, some other different countries, but these are the main three that you need to know. So, in your notes, what are you going to put as the main Axis powers? Beautiful, wonderfully done. Let's continue. The beginning of the war. Before we start this, Axis and Allied powers, did everyone get that information down, or do I need to go back, or do I need to elaborate on everything? This is a lot of information, which we're going to get into deeper next lesson, but if you have questions, I am happy to stop and talk about it. Okay, perfect. Then we're going to jump into the beginning of the war. World War II officially began on September 1st, 1939. Make sure that when you are writing the dates that you're paying good attention. It's very easy to mix up numbers, and these are going to be very, very important for later assignments and just for you to kind of understand what's going on, because if you write down that this happened in 1949, it's not going to make any sense with the rest of the information we're about to learn. So, World War II officially began on September 1st, 1939, when Germany invaded Poland. France and Britain declared war 2 days later, which we talked about in the last two slides. China had long-standing conflict with Japan due to Japan's violent actions and invasions since 1931, which played into World War II. We talked about their toxic relationship. Even though most of the world had no knowledge of the killings of Jews started in 1939 in Germany. I know that we have not gone over exactly what this event is yet, but does anybody know what the mass killing of Jews in Germany is called? Jana. The Holocaust, that is correct. We are going to jump more into the Holocaust later, but I know that you guys have learned some things about it. Absolutely horrific tragedy, but it played a big part in World War II. However, at this very time, at the beginning of the war, most people didn't have knowledge of what was going on in Europe at the time. Moving on, other things impacted the start of the war, like economic challenges after the Great Depression, and the anger Germany held due to the harsh terms placed on them by the Treaty of Versailles in World War I. So this bottom piece right here is just talking about, they're not specific actions, but there's still reasons why the war started. So we still have some impact from World War I playing into things, as well as economic issues from the Great Depression, which we talked about in the past. I'm going to give you a minute to finish writing these notes down. Over here is just a newspaper. It is an American newspaper. It says Germans invade and bomb Poland. Britain mobilizes. So it is just a newspaper covering the start of the war, giving Americans some information. Raise your hand if you need more time. Okay, let's carry on. Let's see. The in-between. On December 7th, 1941, Japan attacked the U.S. naval base Pearl Harbor, which brought the U.S. into the war. So Pearl Harbor, the attack on our naval base, which you can see right here, is the reason that we decided to take action in the war. Before we were neutral, You could say that we were neutral until we were attacked and brought into it. The Allied attack, known as D-Day, took place on June 6, 1944. The Allied forces invaded France in order to liberate it. This was a large turning point in the war. So we talked about earlier how the beginning of the war started when Germany was trying to take land from other countries in Europe, France included. They were one of the first to declare war on Germany. Germany actually ended up taking a hold of France. And D-Day is when the Allied powers took it back. And so that was a really, really big deal in the middle of the war because it gave us advantages, land, resources, it pushed back the Axis powers, all those things. So this was a very, very big deal. Throughout the war, the Holocaust intensified, killing a large amount of the European population. So that included Jews, Gypsies, the disabled. That intensified pretty much all throughout Europe. I'm going to give you a minute to write down the rest of those notes. As I said, this is a picture of Pearl Harbor. This right here is a picture of D-Day. This is the Allied forces on the coast of Normandy, France. I know this is a lot of information. We'll get in deep, and you're not getting quizzed on it right now. So we're just getting down the information. We can take time taking it all in. It'll be okay. I know this is a lot, but bear with me. All right, hands if we need more time writing. Perfect. Let's move on. The end of the war. A large battle to capture the island of Iwo Jima from the Japanese started on February 19th, 1945 by the U.S., who eventually captured the island. That is pretty self-explanatory. This is the Japanese island. On February 19th, the U.S. captured it. We were fighting a war for a couple of days for it, and eventually won. On May 8th, 1945, Germany fully surrendered to Allied forces, which is why the day is called Victory in Europe Day, or VE Day. So that is the day that Germany called it quits. Victory over Japan Day, or VJ Day, soon followed on August 15th, which was the surrender of Japan to the Allied forces. This ended the war. So VJ Day was the day that Japan surrendered, called it quits, but this means that it's also the day that the war ended. As the war ended in 1945, so did the Holocaust. We really didn't know the full extent of how horrific the Holocaust was until the end of the war, when our troops went in. That is a whole another topic that we can talk about at a different time, or later on a different group can go in and find information about that. When we get further down the line in our lessons, I'm going to give you a minute to finish writing this down. Okay, we good? Hands? Beautiful. Now, we are going to create a timeline. If you flip to the next page in your notes, after all the stuff we just filled in, there is a blank page that is labeled the World War II timeline. You can flip this page or your packet horizontally, vertically, whatever you want to do to draw your timeline. It does not matter to me. We are going to be using this blank page in your notes to create a timeline that has the following events: the start of World War II, VJ Day, the attack of Pearl Harbor, the Battle of Iwo Jima, D-Day, the Holocaust, VE Day, and the end of World War II. So, independently at your desks, you are going to be using the notes that we just took to create this timeline. The notes that we just took have everything that you need. They have dates and context, and we just talked about the beginning, in between, the end of the war. So this timeline is something that you guys can definitely do independently. You have to make sure that everything listed here is included. I will leave this up for you guys to look at. If you need help, you can quietly ask a neighbor, but this is not a joint effort. We can ask questions, but then we need to go our separate ways. I can also help out if you have a question that your neighbor does not know. Raise your hand and I will come to you and help you out. Okay, it is now your time to shine. I'm going to give you time to work on this. Yes, Jalen. That is a good question that Jalen just asked, so let's talk about it really quick. He asked that why it says the end of World War II right here when we have no specific dates in our notes for World War II. Ending, so let's go back here. This is the end of the war. Can someone go through these notes and raise your hand and tell me what date we can use as the end of World War II? Ben. August 15th. Okay, so if we have to plot VJ Day and the end of World War II on the timeline, how are we going to do that? Beautiful. We are going to put them on the same plot. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Wonderful question, though. That was a bit tricky. But VJ Day and was the end of World War II. So this plot and this would be the same. Just make sure that when you're writing underneath, you don't just write VJ Day, that you also include that it was the end of World War II. Yes, Jenny. Yes. We have another good observation from Jenny. So, I'm asking you to plot things on a timeline, and one of the things that I want you to plot is the Holocaust. Was the Holocaust one very specific date? No. Perfect. The Holocaust was a large period of time. How can we put that on a timeline? Someone help me out. Perfect. So we can make a plot at the beginning and at the end, and then connect them by a line, and then we can label that line. Or you can do two separate points and label it the beginning of the Holocaust and the end of the Holocaust. Yes, Daniel. Yes, you can. Daniel made a great observation. VJ Day, the end of World War II, and the Holocaust are technically all the same date, so you can include all those in the same point. Wonderful, wonderful observation. Okay. I'm going to give you guys about 3 to 5 more minutes to work on this. That's how long we have left in our lesson. And then I'm going to have you guys turn in your note packets so I can check out your timeline, and I will hand them back out for our next lesson. Okay, so go ahead, take about 3 minutes and finish that up. Let me take a look. Let me see. That looks beautiful. Sure, you can add some color if you want. That does not bother me at all. Whatever floats your boat, makes you happy. That is totally fine. Just make sure I can still read everything. We're good to go. All right, 1 more minute. Alrighty, it is time to put your packets in the turn-in bin. While you are doing that, quietly, a real quick review what we're going to be doing next class. Next class, I will be putting you into research groups. There will be 6 groups. Each group will get a different event from World War II that they are going to take the class and research. Every single event has a beautiful slide right here. This first beautiful little link right here is a song connected to every single event, like the one we started class with. And this next link is a informational video for you guys to start with. So that's what we are going to be doing next lesson. Is everyone timelines turned in? Okay, beautiful. Then you guys are good to go to your next class. Wonderful job. Thank you so much, guys.